Report items are used in all reports, no matter how simple or complex. Reports will consist of multiple report items. So it's important to understand the foundational report items and how they're used. You may use some of these in very simple reports just by setting simple properties, or you may get into the weeds and use some of the more advanced and complex properties. Let's start with the most basic, the text box. Text boxes are used all over reports for things like titles and labels. If you wanted to place field information or parameter information in the heading of a report, you may add additional text boxes that you would simply use as labels. You've already seen that text boxes are used to contain expressions, and they provide the cell contents for data regions like a table or a matrix. Every cell within a table contains a text box by default, and as you add fields to the groups and within the cells of that table, you're actually defining expressions within those text boxes. Now, a text box, as we get into more advanced features, can contain multiple placeholders, meaning that I can add multiple expressions, multiple field references, or multiple strings of static text to a text box, each within its own placeholder. And each of those placeholders in line within that text box can be formatted separately, creating what we call a compound formatted text box with different expressions. So part of it could be bold, some could be italic, they could be different colors, different font sizes, etc. Optionally, you can also use inline HTML formatting tags so that the bold, italic, underline, colors for different parts of that text can be defined as inline HTML tags. Images, as you might guess, are used to display or render pictures or image content on a report. Now, this could be something as simple as a logo or a picture in the heading of the report, or it could be inline information within a data region like a table. So typically, images are either going to be embedded into the report, but they can also be external references using a URL or file system path. But they can also be data-based. So your data set can return raster image information, MIME encoded as a JPEG or PNG or TIFF within the data set itself, and then we can render that inline within a table or list or matrix as image content. That image content, the actual pictures, can be standalone or they could be repeated within data regions. A rectangle is a rectangular area that you define on your report as a report item, and it's a container for other report items and data regions. Now, that can be used for a couple of different reasons. One, as an alignment container, meaning that if I place a table next to a chart side by side with a certain amount of space between them, that the rendering engine knows to honor that and to leave that space and always put those side by side. So it's not going to move things around where the renderer might manipulate things for different screen sizes or different rendering layouts otherwise. A rectangle can be a visual container where I just want to border around a group of report items. Then the rectangle can simply serve that purpose. It can also provide pagination control where I can essentially say, I want a page break at this place before these report items, essentially at the beginning of the rectangle, or I want a page break after these report items at the end of the rectangle. A line is a very simple report item that draws a line on a certain place of the report. We've already talked about data regions, which technically are report items that can consume an entire data set. And then later, we'll talk about visual report items like charts, KPI indicators, gauges, spark lines, and other visual components. Headers, footers, and page control. Page header and page footer are explicitly enabled or disabled on the report. You define a page header and or page footer, and then you can optionally exclude the page header on the first page of the report. The content of the page header will be repeated at the top of every page for the report. Same thing with the page footer. Now, report header and footer are actually different. They're just part of the report body. We actually don't have an explicit report header in reporting services. You just have the stuff, the report items that you place at the top of the report that get rendered on the first page of the report. So the report header is all of the report items above the first data region, and the report footer is everything below the last data region that gets rendered at the bottom of the last page of the report. Each group, let's take a table as an example. Within a table, every group can optionally have any number of rows above the actual data content and any number of rows after the data content. So when you add a row to a table, you can explicitly say, I'm adding it to this group and I want it within this group above the data or within this group below the data. And that can provide column headings, titles, or total information. Also called total rows, which are rows in a table, and then in a matrix could either be columns or rows that contain total information. Could be above or below a group, and they're repeated with each distinct group value. Every group header or footer row can optionally force a page break. This graphic shows a summary of different headers, footers, and objects that can be used to enforce page control. So over on the left side, you can see the page header area. Any of the text boxes and the line that I've placed in this area will be repeated at the top of every page and optionally omitted on the first page of the report. Then we have the report body, which is where I place my report items and my data regions. And then the group definitions within this table will define table header rows, detail rows, group total rows, table total rows, etc. Everything above that table effectively is the report header. Everything below that table, since this report only contains a single data region, is effectively the report footer. And then we have the page footer at the bottom that will be repeated on the bottom of every page.